It began as an ordinary evening, the kind where families sit together, talk about work, complain about traffic, and pretend that everything is fine. But that night, as I prepared the dining table, I couldn't shake off the strange heaviness in the air. My daughter, Emily, had insisted on hosting dinner for us. She said she wanted to introduce someone important. Her voice over the phone had been calm, but there was something rehearsed about it, as if she were hiding a tremor behind her words. By 6, the table was perfectly set. My husband, Richard, was already pouring himself a glass of wine, humming to an old tune that neither of us really liked. He seemed unconcerned. He rarely noticed undercurrents the way I did. But I had a mother's instinct, and it whispered to me that tonight would change everything. When Emily arrived, she looked different, not just older, harder. Her eyes, once bright with innocence, had a guarded sharpness to them. Her hair, once long and golden, was cut short into a sleek, almost defiant bob. The black dress she wore looked too expensive for her modest salary as a teaching assistant. And the man who walked in beside her, well, he wasn't what I expected. "Mom, Dad," she said with a tight smile, "this is Adrian." Adrian was tall, impeccably dressed, and disturbingly self-assured. He had that kind of smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. A smile of someone who had already studied you and filed you away in some mental cabinet of judgment. He extended his hand, and as I shook it, something cold and calculating passed through me. His grip was firm, his gaze unflinching. "Pleasure to meet you, Mr. and Mrs. Warren," he said smoothly, his voice low and deliberate. "I've heard so much about you both." Dinner began politely enough. We spoke of trivialities: work, weather, the new restaurant that had opened downtown. But Adrian had a way of steering the conversation, of subtly probing into things that didn't concern him. When I mentioned that Emily used to volunteer at the community shelter, he tilted his head slightly and said, "Ah, yes, that was before she started with me." The words slid out so casually that I almost missed them. "With you?" Richard asked, raising an eyebrow. "You mean working with you?" Adrian smiled again, that same polished, unreadable smile, in a manner of speaking. Emily's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Her eyes darted toward Adrian, then toward us, a silent plea flashing across her face. My heart began to pound. I decided to press, gently. "So, Adrian, what is it exactly that you do?" He leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine. "I manage people, talented people. I give them opportunities they wouldn't have otherwise." It sounded innocent enough, but there was something about the way he said manage that made my stomach twist. Emily's hand trembled slightly as she set down her fork. "You mean like an agent?" Richard asked. Adrian's lips curled faintly. "You could say that." The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. I could hear the faint ticking of the clock behind me, each second dragging like a blade across the room. Emily tried to change the subject, talking about the wine, the candlelight, anything. But the more she spoke, the clearer it became that she was trying to distract us. And then Adrian, almost lazily, said, "Your daughter is quite the star these days. I must say, she has a rare kind of appeal." My blood ran cold. Star, I repeated softly. Emily, what does he mean? Her lips parted, but no words came out. Her eyes glistened, and for the first time this evening, I saw real fear in her expression. Adrian, on the other hand, looked entertained. He placed his glass down carefully, folded his hands, and looked directly at me. Surely she's told you about her online channel, her audience. I turned to Emily. What channel? She swallowed hard, tears beginning to well up. Mom, it's nothing. Just a side project. Please don't. But Adrian cut her off. Oh, come now, Emily. Don't downplay it. You have millions of followers. You've built an empire on being authentic, haven't you? My husband frowned, confused. An empire? What's he talking about? And then Adrian, with cruel precision, took his phone out of his pocket, tapped the screen, and slid it across the table. You might as well see for yourselves. On the screen was a video. Emily's face, unmistakable, but not the face we knew. In the dim glow of some neon-lit room, wearing a mask that only covered half her features, she was speaking in a tone I had never heard from her. Confident, commanding, seductive even. The title above the video made my stomach lurch. Richard pushed the phone away. His face was pale. I couldn't breathe. My little girl, the one who collected pressed flowers and whispered prayers before bed, was someone else entirely. Someone who lived a life we knew nothing about. Emily's voice cracked as she whispered, I didn't mean for you to find out this way. Please, just let me explain. But Adrian smirked, leaning forward. Explain? Oh, Emily, you've told them half-truths for long enough. Isn't it time they knew everything? I turned toward him sharply. You had no right. He held up a hand. No right? Mrs. Warren, your daughter works for me. Every deal, every sponsorship, every arrangement goes through my network. She's not a child anymore. The word arrangement hung in the air like smoke. Richard's fist slammed the table. What kind of business are you running? Adrian's eyes gleamed with quiet menace. The kind that rewards ambition. Emily stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Stop it, both of you! This isn't how I wanted this to go! Her voice broke, raw and trembling. Yes, I have a channel. Yes, it's not something I'm proud of anymore, but I did it to survive. You don't know what it's like trying to make it in this world. Emily, I whispered, what did you do? She hesitated, and then, with a trembling breath, she said, everything I had to. The room fell silent again. A silence so deep it seemed to swallow the air itself. The candles flickered. Outside, a distant siren wailed. Adrian rose from his seat, buttoning his jacket with eerie calm. Well, he said softly, it seems dinner is over. But I could tell from the look in Emily's eyes that the night was far from finished, and that Adrian's grip on her life went far deeper than we could possibly imagine. Emily's breathing was shallow, her hands trembling as she clutched the edge of the table. I could see the conflict raging inside her. Shame, defiance, fear, all tangled together like a storm. Adrian's presence seemed to drain the light from the room. Even the flicker of the candles dimmed around him. Emily, Richard said in a low, dangerous voice, what did this man get you into? She didn't answer. Her gaze darted toward Adrian, then back to us, as though permission to speak was something she needed to earn. That realization sent a chill through me. Adrian smiled faintly. Careful, Mr. Warren. You make it sound like I forced her. She came to me, desperate, ambitious, hungry to be seen. I simply gave her what she wanted. Emily's eyes flashed with anger. You promised to protect me. You said I'd be safe. I did protect you, he replied evenly. But every deal has its price, doesn't it? The tension in the room thickened until it felt almost physical. My husband stood up abruptly, towering over Adrian. You're leaving, he said, his voice shaking. Right now, and if you ever contact my daughter again. Adrian didn't even flinch. You what? Call the police? Tell them your adult daughter signed contracts she didn't read? That she made thousands under my management? His voice softened, almost mockingly. Be careful, Richard. The world loves to judge, and it won't be me they blame. Richard's fists clenched, but before he could say anything, Emily stepped between them. Stop, both of you, please! Her voice cracked. I can fix this, I just need time. Fix what? I asked, my voice trembling. What are you involved in, Emily? She turned to me, her eyes wet and pleading. It started small, Mom. I was just talking about life, relationships, self-image, the kind of things people my age struggle with. The channel grew fast, and then he found me. She nodded toward Adrian. He said I could make real money, that I could live comfortably, pay off my debts, help you and Dad. Richard scoffed. So you sold yourself to him? Her face twisted in pain. You don't understand. It wasn't like that at first. He said I'd be an influencer, sponsorships, promotions. But then he started changing the content, pushing me toward more controversial things. The views exploded, the money poured in. I kept telling myself I'd stop when it got too far, but by the time I wanted out, I couldn't. Adrian leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying her unraveling. You always had the choice, my dear. You just didn't like the consequences that came with it. I could barely process the words. Consequences? I whispered. Emily hesitated. He made me sign a contract. It gave him control of my content, my likeness, my brand, everything under his company's name. If I break it, he can sue me for millions. And it's not just legal. He has files, videos, messages, things that could ruin me. Adrian smirked. We call that leverage in my industry. Richard's jaw tightened. You're a parasite. He tilted his head. I'm a businessman. Your daughter's not the innocent little girl you remember, and deep down, you both know that. The venom in his tone made my stomach twist. Emily covered her face with her hands, trembling as silent tears slipped through her fingers. Please, just stop talking. Just stop. I walked over to her, placing a trembling hand on her shoulder. She flinched at first, then leaned into me, her body shaking. We'll get you out of this, I whispered, though the words felt fragile, uncertain. I promise. Adrian stood, adjusting his cufflinks, his composure never breaking. Promises are sweet, Mrs. Warren, but they won't pay nigh legal fees. She belongs to my network for another 3 years. If she wants to leave, she'll need to buy her freedom. And that won't come cheap. Get out, Richard growled. He smiled as if amused by a child's tantrum. Of course, but I'll be in touch, Emily. You have a live stream scheduled tomorrow at 9. Don't keep your audience waiting. Her face went pale. She whispered, Please don't make me do it. His expression softened, mocking sympathy twisting his mouth.
Then deliver what I came for. You know how quickly the internet forgets. He turned and walked toward the door. His shoes clicked against the floor, each step echoing like a countdown. When the door shut behind him, it felt like the entire house exhaled, a suffocating silence settling in his wake. Emily collapsed into a chair, her body trembling violently. "He owns everything," she whispered. "If I disappear, he'll leak everything. My private videos, my messages, everything I said when I trusted him." Richard paced the room like a caged animal. "We'll hire a lawyer. We'll take him down." "You don't get it," Emily said hoarsely. "He's untouchable. He has people, lawyers, influencers, even police contacts. Anyone who goes against him ends up blacklisted or worse. Mom, I've seen what he does to people who cross him." Her voice broke again. "He ruined a girl last year, Mia. She tried to leave his agency and her videos accidentally leaked. Everyone turned on her. She vanished a month later. No one's heard from her since." My heart pounded. The air felt heavy with dread. "Emily, are you threatening me?"
She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Not directly, but he doesn't have to. Every message, every phone call, he reminds me that I'm replaceable. Richard stopped pacing. His voice was low, controlled. "We'll record everything, every text, every email. If he so much as breathes near you again, we'll go public." Emily's laugh was hollow, broken. "You think people care? They'll say I wanted it, that I liked the fame. They'll turn it into gossip. I'll be the villain in my own story." I knelt beside her, forcing her to meet my eyes. "Then we'll tell your story first. Our version. The truth." Her lips parted, and for a fleeting moment, hope flickered in her eyes. Fragile, uncertain, but real. Then her phone buzzed. The sound sliced through the room like a blade. She looked at the screen, her face draining of color. "What is it?" I asked. She turned the screen toward me. It was a message from an unknown number, but the words were unmistakably his. "You shouldn't have told them. Cameras work both ways, sweetheart." Her phone slipped from her trembling hand, hitting the floor with a soft thud. And in the dim light of that quiet, suffocating dining room, I realized Adrian hadn't really left. He was still watching. For a long moment, none of us moved. The message on Emily's phone glowed faintly, the words burning into our minds like a scar we couldn't erase. Richard reached for it first, his hands trembling, veins standing out on his skin. He read the message once, twice, then looked around the room, his gaze darting toward the windows, the corners, even the chandelier above. "Cameras," he muttered, almost to himself. He said cameras. Where? Emily's breathing quickened. I don't know. I don't know." She looked around wildly, scanning the walls, the lamp, even the fruit bowl. "He can't be serious. He can't." But I could see it in her face. She knew he was. Richard moved toward the bookshelf and began pulling things down, books falling to the floor in heavy thuds. "If he's spying on us, I'll find it." I stood frozen, my heart hammering, my eyes sweeping the room. That familiar, warm dining space, the one where birthdays were celebrated, where Emily used to laugh as a child, now felt hostile, foreign. Every shadow seemed alive, every flicker of light a possible lens watching us. "Emily," I whispered, "has he ever been in this house before?" Her lips trembled. "No, not here, but he has my location. He tracks everything, my phone, my laptop, even my car. I signed over permissions in one of his contracts." Richard slammed his fist on the table, the sound making me jump. "He's not just a businessman. He's a predator." She flinched.
You don't think I know that? Her voice broke, raw and desperate. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I thought he was helping me. I was struggling. I was drowning. He promised everything would change. He said he'd make me famous, that I'd never have to worry again. I crouched beside her, my voice trembling but soft. And he did, didn't he? He made you famous, but on his terms. He made me into something I'm not. The things he wanted me to say, to wear, to be. He said people only want what shocks them. And I believed him. Richard stopped tearing the room apart and sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. For the first time that night, he looked smaller, defeated. "We failed you," he whispered. "No," Emily said weakly. "I failed myself." Silence filled the room again, thick and uneasy. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator and Emily's soft, uneven breathing. Then faintly, a noise. A tiny click. All three of us froze. It came from the vent above the kitchen door. Richard's eyes followed the sound. Slowly, he stood, grabbed the broom from beside the counter, and jabbed it upward. Something metallic cattered onto the floor. A small black object, no larger than a coin, rolled across the tiles before coming to rest against the leg of the table. Richard picked it up carefully, turning it over in his fingers. It was a micro camera, its red recording light still blinking faintly. My stomach turned to ice. "He's been watching," I whispered. Emily's face went pale. "He knows everything." Richard's voice was low and sharp. "He put this here. He's been in our house." I looked toward the door, a creeping dread climbing up my spine. "When? How?" Emily's voice was barely audible. "I gave him a spare key. Months ago. For emergencies," he said. "I forgot to take it back." Richard's knuckles went white. "He's not just controlling you online. He's in our lives, in our home." He stormed toward the hallway, muttering under his breath, "I'm calling the police." Emily grabbed his arm. "No! You don't understand. He'll know. He has connections. He'll know before they even reach him." "Let him know," Richard snapped. "Let him come. I want him to." "Dad, please," she cried. "You'll make it worse. He'll leak everything. My videos, my messages, private moments, all of it. He said if I ever go against him, he'll destroy me." I stood between them, trembling. We can't act rashly. We need to think. We need proof. Something we can use without him knowing. Richard's anger faded into something colder, more focused. Then we gather evidence. We make him believe we're still scared. We play along until he's the one exposed. Emily wiped her tears. "You don't know him, Dad. He's clever. He plans everything. People who cross him disappear." I touched her hand. "So we won't cross him. Not yet. We'll be smarter." She looked at me lost and broken. "Mom, he's always watching. How do we outsmart someone who sees everything?" I hesitated, then glanced toward the fallen camera. "We start by letting him see what we want him to see." Richard met my eyes, understanding flickering there. "You mean act normal?" I nodded slowly. "Pretend nothing is wrong. Keep up appearances. Let him think he still has control."
Emily swallowed hard. "And then," Richard said, his voice firm again, "we find out where he keeps his files, his backups, his leverage. We take it all from him." Emily shook her head. "That's impossible. He hides everything behind encryption. Even I don't know where his servers are." "Someone does," I said softly. "Someone close to him. Maybe one of the girls. Or someone who works for him. We'll find them." Emily's gaze drifted toward the window, her expression distant, haunted. There's one person. Her name's Ava. She used to work for him before she disappeared. People said she ran away. But I got an email from her 2 months ago. Richard leaned forward. What did it say? Emily's eyes filled with tears again. It said, "If he ever turns on you, look for me where the lights go out." I frowned. What does that mean? I don't know, she whispered. But she was always cryptic. She used to talk about finding freedom offline, disappearing completely. Richard stood, determination returning to his face. Then that's where we start. Find Ava. Emily hesitated. If she's even alive. The phone buzzed again. Another message from the same number. Nice family meeting. You all look so serious tonight. Richard's face hardened as he looked up at the nearest window, his reflection staring back through the glass. And just outside, faint and unmistakable, a red light blinked from the darkness. Watching. Richard's breath caught as his eyes fixed on that faint red glow outside the window. It blinked rhythmically, steady and deliberate, like the heartbeat of something alive, something waiting. He moved toward the glass, slowly, his shoulders tense, every step heavy with anger. I reached for him, whispering, "Don't!" But he was already pulling the curtain aside. Outside, beyond the reflection of our dining room light, the dark yard stretched out in silence. The red light came from somewhere near the edge of the garden, beneath the old oak tree. Richard grabbed the flashlight from the counter and stepped out through the back door, the cold night air rushing in behind him. "Dad, wait!" Emily cried, following him. I went after them, my pulse thundering. The grass was slick with dew, the chill biting at my skin. The only sound was the faint hum of crickets, broken by the crunch of our footsteps. "There," Richard hissed. He crouched near the base of the tree, sweeping the flashlight beam across the roots. And there it was, a small, sleek camera buried halfway into the soil, its lens glinting up at us like an unblinking eye. Emily gasped. "He's been watching from outside too?" Richard's jaw tightened as he yanked the camera out of the ground. The small device was still warm, its blinking light now flickering weakly in his palm. "This ends tonight," he said through gritted teeth. "Wait," I said quickly. "Don't destroy it. If we turn it off, he'll know we found it." He hesitated, breathing hard, then nodded reluctantly. "You're right." We went back inside, closing the door behind us. The warmth of the house felt foreign now, invaded. Emily collapsed on the couch, hugging her knees, trembling uncontrollably. "Mom, he's everywhere. He's probably listening right now." I sat beside her, wrapping my arm around her shoulders. "Then we speak carefully," I murmured, "and we plan quietly." Richard placed the camera on the table, his eyes dark with fury. "He wants us to scare us. He thinks we'll hide and do nothing, but I'm not afraid of this monster." Emily looked up at him, her voice trembling. "You should be." Her phone buzzed again. She jumped, fumbling to silence it. Another message appeared on the screen. "Nice family meeting. You all look so serious tonight." Her face went white. "He sent me that dress I wore tonight, the one I thought was from a sponsor." Richard slammed his hand against the wall, a picture frame rattling from the impact. "He's taunting us!" "Calm down," I said sharply, though my own hands were shaking. "He wants you angry. That's how he controls people. We can't let him see us break." Emily stared at the message, her expression hollow. "He always knows what to say. Every time I think I can breathe, he sends something like this, to remind me who's really in charge." I took her phone, scrolling through her messages, thread after thread of manipulation, compliments laced with commands, threats disguised as affection. It made my stomach turn. "He treats you like property," I said, disgusted. "That's what he does. He builds you up, makes you depend on him, then breaks you down so you can't leave." Richard paced the room, muttering to himself, his fists clenching and unclenching. "I'll find him," he said finally. "I'll go to his office, his house, wherever he hides. I'll make him regret ever touching our family." "Richard, no," I said firmly. "That's what he wants. You go after him, and he'll retaliate. You think he hasn't planned for that?" Richard stopped, his jaw tightening. "Then what do we do? Sit here while he watches us like animals in a cage?" I looked at the camera on the table, then back at Emily's haunted face. We let him think we're still in the cage, but we start digging our way out. Emily looked up, confused. "How?" I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "Tomorrow, you go to him like normal. You act obedient, apologetic. Tell him your parents overreacted. You keep him calm." Richard turned to me sharply. "No, I'm not letting her near that man again." "She has to. It's the only way we can learn where he keeps his files, his footage, everything he uses to control her. We can't beat him blind." Emily hesitated. "You want me to spy on him?" I met her gaze. "You already live under his surveillance. It's time we turn the tables." She looked uncertain, but there was a flicker of something new in her eyes. Resolve. "If I do this, we'll need help. Someone who knows how he operates." "You mentioned Ava," I reminded her. "We find her." Richard frowned. "How?" "You said she vanished." Emily unlocked her laptop, her hands shaking as she opened her email. "That message she sent, the one about where the lights go out, I think she meant a place. Maybe it's a clue." She typed furiously, searching for anything connected to the phrase. After a few minutes, she stopped, her face pale. "There's a decommissioned studio on the outskirts of town," she said. "It used to be his company's first filming location before he moved to the city. It's been shut down for years. The utilities were cut. No power, no lights." Richard leaned over her shoulder. "That's where the lights go out." Emily nodded slowly. If Ava's still alive, she might be there. I felt a chill run through me. "Then we go," I said. "Tomorrow night." Richard shook his head. "It's too dangerous." "So is doing nothing," I replied. "He's watching us already. We can't hide in our own home forever." Emily looked between us, fear flickering in her eyes. "If he finds out I went there—" "He won't," I said. "We'll make him think you're following orders. You'll go to his office just like always. Meanwhile, your father and I will go to the studio." Richard's brow furrowed. "I don't like leaving you alone with him." "I won't be alone," she said, her voice trembling, but steady. "I'll wear a wire. I'll record everything." I squeezed her hand. "We'll end this, Emily, one way or another." Her phone buzzed again, this time a new message. "Don't forget tomorrow, 9 p.m. sharp. Wear something that reminds them who you belong to." Her fingers tightened around the phone, her face hardening. "I'm done belonging to him," she whispered. But somewhere, outside, beyond the curtains and the cold November air, a car engine started. Richard froze, listening. The sound lingered for a few seconds, then faded into the distance. He looked toward the window, his voice low and grim. "He's closer than we think." The distant hum of the engine faded into silence, but the tension it left behind seemed to hum through the walls. Richard stood perfectly still, listening, his eyes darting between the windows. The night outside was thick, the kind of darkness that felt like it was pressing against the glass. Emily's breathing was quick and shallow, her hand clutching the edge of the couch. "He was here," she whispered. "He's been sitting out there watching us." Richard slowly moved to the curtain, pulling it back just an inch. The street was empty, no headlights, no movement, just the faint glow of the lampposts at the end of the block. "He's gone," he muttered, though his voice carried no relief. But not far. I turned toward Emily, who looked pale and fragile under the kitchen light. "You're not staying here tonight," I said firmly. "We'll go to a hotel, somewhere he doesn't know." She shook her head. "He'll know, Mom. He always knows. He tracks my phone, my cards, my car, every move I make." Richard clenched his jaw.
Then we'll go somewhere he can't follow." Emily laughed softly, bitterly. "There's no such place, not with him." Her defeat broke something inside me. "That's what he wants you to believe," I said, taking her hands. "But he doesn't own your mind, not anymore." Richard stepped closer, lowering his voice. "We need to move carefully. He's watching, listening, waiting for us to panic. We act calm, we stay predictable. Tomorrow, we stick to the plan. You see him, keep him distracted. Your father and I will check that old studio." Emily hesitated, fear flickering behind her eyes. "What if it's a trap?" "Then we'll know," Richard said simply. "And once we know, we can fight back." She swallowed hard and nodded. Her phone buzzed again, but this time she ignored it. The rest of the night passed in tense silence. None of us could sleep. Richard sat by the window with a baseball bat in his lap, watching the street. I stayed beside Emily on the couch, her head resting on my shoulder. The quiet felt heavy. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps, every gust of wind like a whisper. Around 3 in the morning, I caught a faint light flickering from Emily's laptop. She'd fallen asleep, her hand still resting on the keyboard. The screen showed her last search: Ava Clark disappearance 2023. There were old articles, half buried in forgotten corners of the internet. One of them mentioned the studio. It said Ava had been last seen leaving that building late at night, her car found abandoned nearby. I scrolled further, finding an old image of her, a young woman with sharp eyes and a tired smile. Something in her expression reminded me of Emily, that same mix of ambition and quiet fear. A soft voice startled me. "You're still awake." I turned. Richard was standing behind me, his face lined with exhaustion. "I can't stop thinking," I whispered. "If Ava disappeared from that place and Emily's next..." He rubbed his back of his neck, sighing. "That's exactly why we're going there. Maybe she left something behind. Evidence. Something we can use." I nodded, closing the laptop. "Then we'll go first thing tomorrow." He hesitated. "No, not in daylight. Too visible. We'll go at night." "Richard, think about it. If he's watching us, he'll see us leave tomorrow morning and know something's wrong. But if we wait until night while Emily is with him..." I didn't like the idea, but he was right. Adrian expects fear. He doesn't expect strategy. By dawn, we'd made our plan. Emily would go to Adrian's downtown office at 9, just as he demanded. She'd wear the hidden mic Richard had bought years ago for his work presentations, small enough to fit inside a pendant. Meanwhile, we'd drive to the abandoned studio and look for anything that could link him to her exploitation or to Ava's disappearance. As the morning light crept across the floor, Emily sat silently at the table, sipping her coffee. She looked so fragile in that moment, not the confident woman the world saw online, but my daughter again, scared and small. "You don't have to do this," I whispered. "Yes, I do," she said softly. "If I don't face him, he wins, and I'm tired of living in his shadow." Richard gave her the pendant. "It'll record for up to 2 hours. Once you're done, leave his office as normally as possible. We'll be nearby." She nodded, slipping it around her neck. By the time she left, the house felt unbearably quiet. Every tick of the clock echoed in my chest. Richard and I packed what we needed: flashlight, gloves, the camera we'd found, Emily's laptop. At 7 that evening, we set out for the studio.
The building sat on the outskirts of town, surrounded by overgrown weeds and broken fencing. The old sign out front still bore the faded logo of Adrian's company, the Aether Network. The place looked dead, abandoned for years, but as we stepped closer, I noticed fresh tire marks in the dirt. Richard caught my eye. Someone's been here recently. We entered through a side door, the hinges groaning softly. Inside, the air smelled of dust and decay. The studio floor stretched out before us. Empty sets, shattered lights, piles of forgotten props. I swept my flashlight across the walls. Posters of smiling influencers hung in torn strips, their eyes eerily bright under the beam. "This place gives me the creeps," I murmured. Richard moved deeper into the building, his flashlight cutting through the dark. "Over here," he whispered.
He was standing in front of a locked metal door at the far end of the hallway. A red security light blinked faintly above it. "That's not dead power," he said. "Someone's still using this." He tried the handle, locked tight. I noticed a keypad beside it. "Maybe Emily's laptop has something," I suggested. We crouched beside the door, booting it up. Richard connected to the faint Wi-Fi signal showing as Aether Private. My pulse quickened as lines of code filled the screen. After a minute, he managed to bypass the login. The door clicked open. Inside, the room was dimly lit by the glow of computer monitors. Rows of hard drives lined the shelves, all neatly labeled with dates and names. And on one screen, a live feed. My stomach dropped. It was our dining room. The camera angle showed everything, the table, the chairs, even the exact spot where we had sat the night before. Richard's face went white. He's been streaming us. There were other feeds too, dozens of rooms, faces, young women talking into cameras, crying, performing, obeying unseen commands. Each window was labeled Channel 22, Channel 34, Channel 47. And among them, one read, Ava Clark Archive. Richard opened it, and the screen filled with video files. The newest one was dated 3 days ago. 3 days? I whispered. But she disappeared 2 years ago. Richard double-clicked the file. The screen flickered, and Ava appeared, pale, trembling, staring directly into the camera. "If you're seeing this, then he knows you found it. He never lets anyone leave. Don't trust—" The video cut off. The monitors flickered. A new message appeared on the center screen, white text over black. "Curiosity is dangerous, Mr. and Mrs. Warren. You should have stayed out of my house." For a split second, the words on the screen didn't register. They just floated there, cold and sterile, before the weight of them slammed into my chest. Richard froze beside me, his hand hovering over the mouse, the glow from the monitor casting sharp lines across his face. Then the lights flickered, once, twice, and went out. The room fell into darkness so complete I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. The only light came from the screens, still faintly glowing, the message lingering, like a warning carved into the dark. Richard whispered, "He's here." I swallowed hard. No, maybe it's automatic. Maybe he's just... The faint sound of footsteps cut me off. Slow, deliberate, echoing down the hallway outside. Richard motioned toward the corner. "Hide," he mouthed. We ducked behind a row of metal shelves filled with dusty equipment. I clutched the flashlight, flicking it off, praying the sound of my breathing wouldn't give us away. The door creaked open. A faint beam of light swept across the room. A flashlight, but not ours. "Mr. and Mrs. Warren," a voice called softly. Calm, smooth, familiar. Adrian. Richard stiffened beside me. I could feel the rage rolling off him like heat, but I grabbed his arm before he could move. The light paused, scanning slowly across the room. Adrian sighed. "You really shouldn't have come here. Curiosity. It's a dangerous thing." He stepped further inside. I could see the outline of him now. Tall, composed, one hand in his pocket, the other holding the flashlight. "Where's your daughter?" he asked, his voice too casual. "I hope she didn't try anything foolish." I clenched my fists, every muscle in my body screaming to lunge at him, but Richard held still. We both stayed quiet, hidden behind the shelves, watching him through the slats. He moved toward the desk, glancing at the computer screen. The faint glow lit his face, calm, sharp, almost amused. "You found Ava's message. She always thought she could outsmart me. Pity, really." He reached out and pressed a key on the keyboard. The files began to disappear, one by one, lines of code flashing across the screen. "There," he said quietly. "No more ghosts." Richard couldn't take it. He surged to his feet. "You sick bastard!" Adrian turned, unfazed. "Ah," he said softly, his lips curling into that same detached smile. "There you are." Before Richard could reach him, he pulled something from his jacket, a small device no larger than a remote. He pressed a button, and the entire wall of servers behind him whirred to life. Lights blinked red, alarms chirped softly, and I realized what was happening. "Richard!" I shouted. The system was purging itself, drives spinning, data wiping clean. Adrian tilted his head, watching us with mild curiosity. "You think you can expose me? Everything I have, every record, every backup, gone in 60 seconds. That's how I built this world, Mrs. Warren. Control and disposal."
Richard lunged, grabbing Adrian by the collar, slamming him against the wall. "You destroyed my daughter's life!" Adrian didn't fight back. His voice stayed maddeningly calm. "Your daughter destroyed herself. I only gave her the mirror." Richard's fist connected with his jaw, the sound echoing through the empty room. Adrian stumbled, but didn't fall. He wiped the blood from his lip and smiled faintly. "You don't scare me." "Maybe not," Richard said, his voice shaking. "But the truth will." Adrian chuckled. "What truth? That your daughter willingly signed my contracts? That she enjoyed the attention? No one cares about the truth. They care about the story, and I write the stories." I could see the clock on the wall. 30 seconds left on the purge timer. I grabbed the nearest hard drive, yanking it from the server rack. The hum faltered, but the system fought back, lights flashing faster. I pulled another and another. "Richard, help me!" He turned, tearing drives out with his bare hands, wires snapping, sparks flying. Adrian watched, still composed, still smiling. "You think you can save her?" he asked softly. "There's no saving someone who traded her soul for attention." Richard turned, his eyes blazing. "No," he said. "There's only punishing the man who took it." He swung again, this time harder. Adrian fell back against the console, his head striking metal. The flashlight rolled across the floor, the beam spinning wildly. For a moment, everything froze. The hum of the machines, the ragged sound of breathing, the faint flicker of the purge countdown. Then Adrian laughed, low and slow, the sound curling through the darkness. "You have no idea what you've started." Richard grabbed him by the collar, but I caught sight of something, a small red light on the device in Adrian's hand. "Richard, stop!" I screamed. It was blinking faster now. Adrian's voice was almost gentle. "You shouldn't have come here." The explosion wasn't loud, not at first. It was a deep, shuddering thump, like the air being sucked out of the world. The monitor shattered, glass spraying outward. I hit the ground hard, covering my head as sparks rained down. Smoke filled the room, acrid and choking. "Richard!" I coughed, crawling through the haze. My ears rang, my lungs burned. "Richard!" A shape moved beside me. He was there, dazed, bleeding, but alive. He helped me to my feet, both of us staggering towards the exit as the room filled with smoke and the faint crackle of fire. Adrian was gone. We stumbled outside into the cold night air, coughing, gasping, the burning studio behind us glowing faintly orange through the trees. Richard leaned against the car, panting. He set the place to blow. Everything's gone. I looked back, my heart pounding. "Not everything," I said. I held up one of the hard drives, charred on one side, but intact. He stared at it, then at me. "You grabbed one?" I nodded. "It's not over yet." He looked towards the road, scanning the dark horizon. "We have to find Emily now." But before we could move, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with trembling hands. A message. No number, just a video file. I opened it and my heart stopped. It was Emily, sitting in Adrian's office, her eyes wide open with terror. "Mom, Dad, he knows you were there. He said if you don't bring him what you took, you'll never see me again." The screen went black, and then for just a moment, Adrian's voice came through. Smooth, calm, cruel. "Round 2 begins now." The phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the ground. The sound seemed to echo in the silence of the empty lot, bouncing off the trees, off the burned-out shell of the studio, off the night itself. For a few seconds, all I could do was stare at the dirt, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. Richard bent down, picked up the phone, and replayed the message. Emily's face flashed on the screen again, pale, terrified, her lips trembling as she spoke our names. It was her. It was really her. There was no mistaking the fear in her eyes.
He stared at it like he could reach through the glass. "Where is she?" he whispered. "Where the hell is she?" I took the phone, rewinding the clip. "Look," I said. "There, the window behind her." We both squinted, a faint glimmer of neon light reflected in the glass. It was blurry, but I recognized the shape. "The Grand Vista Hotel," I said, my breath catching. "It's downtown. That's where he's keeping her." Richard was already running to the car before I'd finished the sentence. "Get in," he barked. "We're not wasting a second." The drive into the city was a blur. Streetlights smeared past like streaks of fire. I clutched the damaged hard drive against my chest as if it were a fragile heart that might stop beating if I loosened my grip. Richard's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "He's not going to hurt her," I said, though I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince, him or myself. "He already has," Richard muttered, "but not again. Not after tonight." The hotel loomed ahead, tall, elegant, its sign glowing faintly through the fog. From the outside it looked peaceful, luxurious even. No one would guess that something monstrous might be happening inside. Inside, soft jazz played over hidden speakers. The receptionist smiled politely. "Good evening. Checking in?" I forced a shaky smile. "Yes," I said. "Room for Emily Warren." The woman typed something on her computer. No reservation under that name." "Maybe under Adrian Cole," Richard interjected. His voice was sharp, tense.
The receptionist hesitated, then her eyes flicked toward something behind us, just for a second. It was so subtle that anyone else might have missed it, but I didn't. I turned. A man in a gray suit stood by the elevator, his posture too rigid, his eyes fixed too firmly on us. He wasn't pretending to read his phone or glance around. He was watching. Richard noticed it too. "We're being followed," he murmured. I gripped his arm. "Play along. Act normal." He nodded slightly. "Actually," I said, turning back to the receptionist, forcing a polite tone, "we must have the wrong date. Thank you." She gave a rehearsed smile. "Of course, ma'am. Enjoy your evening." We walked casually toward the elevator bank. Not too fast, not too slow. The man in gray shifted his stance, pretending to check his watch, but when we passed, I caught it. The faint whisper of a radio in his ear. Security. Or worse. The elevator doors slid open. We stepped inside. I hit the button for the 6th floor. As the doors closed, the man started toward us, but too late. The elevator sealed him out. Richard exhaled shakily. He knows we're here. Then we have to move faster. The elevator hummed softly as it climbed. The numbers blinked up. 2, 3, 4. The tension was unbearable, the kind of silence that fills your chest until you can't breathe. When the doors opened, the hallway was empty. Soft golden lights glowed above plush carpet. Every sound seemed amplified. The creak of the floor, the hum of the air conditioning. We started walking. Room 602, 604, 606. My hands trembled. The hallway seemed endless, stretching on like a nightmare corridor that would never end. Then I heard it. Faint, muffled. A voice. Emily's. It came from behind a door halfway down the hall, room 610. Richard pressed his ear against it. "She's inside," he whispered. I reached for the handle. Locked. Richard stepped back, his jaw set. He rammed his shoulder into the door. Once. Twice. On the third hit, it burst open. The room was dimly lit, curtains drawn, the faint smell of perfume mixed with something metallic. Fear, sweat, panic. Emily sat in a chair near the window, her hands tied with silk ribbon. Her mouth was covered with tape, eyes wide when she saw us. "Emily!" I ran to her, tearing the tape away, pulling her into my arms. She sobbed, shaking uncontrollably. "Mom, he said it's okay, baby, you're safe now." But Richard was scanning the room, his instincts screaming, "Where is he?" That's when the sound came, faint, but sharp, from the hallway. We turned. Adrian stood in the doorway, calm as ever, holding a pistol at his side.
His shirt was slightly burned at the sleeve, a reminder of the explosion, but his expression hadn't changed. Cold. Patient. "I told you not to interfere," he said softly, "and yet here you are." Richard moved instinctively, stepping in front of me and Emily. "You're not walking out of here, Adrian." Adrian tilted his head, almost amused. "You think you can stop me? You don't even know what this is really about." He raised the gun slightly. The light caught his face, and I saw something in his eyes. Not anger, not even cruelty. It was emptiness, a hollow kind of belief, as if he truly thought he was doing something important. Emily trembled behind me. "He said he was protecting me, that he was helping me become untouchable." Adrian smiled faintly. "And I did. You were nothing before I found you. Now you're adored, envied, worshipped. Isn't that what you wanted?" "Not like this," she cried. "You ruined me." His voice dropped to a whisper. "No, Emily. I just showed you what people really are. They don't want truth. They want performance. You're the product they asked for." Richard took a slow step forward. "Put the gun down." Adrian's eyes flicked toward him. "Do you have any idea how much I've built? How many secrets I own?" "Not for long," Richard said. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out the charred hard drive. "Because we took one of your secrets with us." For the first time, Adrian's expression cracked. Just a flicker, but I saw it. "You wouldn't dare," he said. "Watch me," Richard replied. Adrian's hand tightened around the gun. "That drive won't save you." "Maybe not, but it'll destroy you." The room seemed to shrink around us. The hum of the city outside was a distant pulse. The only thing that existed in that moment was the three of us. Two parents, one monster, and a girl who'd lost everything in between. Adrian took one slow step forward, the gun now aimed directly at Richard's chest. "You won't live long enough to use it." Then came a sound, faint but sharp, from the hallway. A voice. We turned. Two uniformed officers stood at the door, guns drawn, their flashlights cutting through the dim room. For the first time, Adrian looked uncertain. "Who called them?" Richard whispered. Emily swallowed hard. "I did," she said, tears in her eyes. "Before you got here." Adrian's gaze flicked between us, calculating. Then slowly, he smiled. A thin, knowing smile.
"This isn't over," he murmured. "Not even close." And before anyone could move, he turned the gun toward the window. The glass shattered as he dove through it into the darkness below. The sound of shattering glass tore through the room like a scream. Emily cried out as a rush of cold night air flooded in. Richard ran to the window, peering down through the broken frame, his face pale under the flashing blue of the police lights outside. "He's gone," he breathed. Far below, 2 stories down, the canopy of the hotel entrance fluttered like a torn flag. There was no sign of Adrian, no body, no movement, just darkness and the faint wail of sirens in the distance. The officers rushed past us, shouting into their radios, scattering through the stairwell and the street. But I already knew it was useless. He'd planned this. Every step, even his escape. Emily clung to me, her entire body shaking. "He said I'd never be free of him. Even if he disappeared, he'd still own me." I brushed the hair from her face, my voice trembling. "You're free now. Do you hear me? He's gone." But even as I said it, my eyes drifted to the drive in Richard's hand, the one we'd pulled from his studio, the one Adrian had almost died trying to destroy. Richard's eyes met mine. "We need to get out of here," he said quietly. "Now." The police wanted statements, names, explanations, but we gave them as little as we could. Richard told them Adrian was a blackmailer, that he'd been threatening Emily for months. I nodded along, clutching Emily close, though my mind was somewhere else, replaying the explosion, the files, the message on that screen. Curiosity is dangerous. Those words looped through my head like a curse. By the time we made it home, dawn was bleeding into the horizon. The city looked calm again, indifferent, as if none of it had ever happened, But when I closed the front door behind us, the silence inside felt wrong. Too still, too expectant. Richard placed the drive on the dining table, the same spot where all this had started. Emily sank into a chair, wrapping her arms around herself. She looked exhausted, hollowed out. Her voice was barely a whisper. He had cameras in the house, Mom. All this time, he was watching. I froze. What? He told me once that he liked studying people when they thought no one was looking, that he could tell everything about someone from how they moved when they were alone. Richard stood up sharply, scanning the corners of the room. If he had cameras here, I'll find them. He began tearing through the living room, the smoke detector, the lamp, even the television mount. Emily flinched with every sound. He always said he had backups, everywhere, hidden copies in case something went wrong. If we've got one of his drives... Her words trailed off. Richard's eyes widened slightly. Then he'll come for it. The realization hung in the air between us, heavy, inescapable. I sat across from her, taking her trembling hand. Emily, what exactly did he have you do? She looked away, her voice cracking. It started as interviews, confessions. He said it was part of an art project, showing the truth behind fame. But then he made me record things, darker things. He said if I didn't, he'd leak what I'd already done. He made it sound like he owned me, every word, every image. I felt sick. And the others, the girls on those screens. Her eyes filled with tears. Some of them disappeared, Mom. I asked about them, but he said they were unreliable, that they broke the rules. Richard swore under his breath, pacing like a man barely containing his fury. He's running something bigger than we thought. This isn't about one man's obsession. It's an entire operation. I looked at the drive. Then we expose it. He hesitated. We don't even know what's on it, and if we go public without proof, he'll bury us. Or worse, Emily whispered. Richard nodded slowly. We need someone we can trust, someone outside all this. That's when I remembered Ava Clark, her face on that old video, her warning, don't trust. The clip had cut off, but what if the rest of her message was still on this drive? We have to see what's on it, I said. Richard sighed. If we plug it in, he could track us. That thing could be rigged to send data back to him. He already knows we have it. He sent that video. He knows everything. No, not everything. Emily shook her head. She went to her bag and pulled out a small USB device. Before he took me, I copied some of his files. I didn't even know why. I just wanted proof. Richard's eyes widened. You still have that? She nodded. It's encrypted, but he once told me his own password. He wanted me to see what he was capable of. We connected her USB to my laptop. The screen flickered to life and a list of folders appeared. Hundreds of them. Names, dates, recordings. My breath caught when I saw one labeled Ava Clark Final. I clicked it open. The video loaded slowly, the grainy image coming into focus. Ava sat in a dark room, eyes red, her voice barely a whisper. If you're watching this, then I didn't make it out. He calls it the network. Every girl he recruits becomes a part of it, live streamed, recorded, sold to private clients under different names. He promises fame, but delivers prison. The files you're holding are the key. They contain everything, the servers, the names, the accounts. The screen glitched and her face distorted for a second before freezing. Emily pressed her mouth to her mouth. Oh my God! Richard's voice was a low growl. We take this to the police, federal level. They'll have to investigate. But what if he's already inside? Emily asked. What if he is the system? Before we could answer, the house phone rang. A sound so ordinary that it shouldn't have been terrifying. But in that moment, it was. None of us moved. The ringing filled the silence, echoing through the house. Richard picked it up slowly. Hello? Static crackled on the other end. Then, faintly, a voice. You think you're safe at home? Richard's knuckles whitened around the receiver. Adrian. The voice chuckled softly. You have something that belongs to me. I'll give you one chance to return it. You'll never get it back, Richard hissed. There was a pause. Then Adrian's tone turned almost gentle. "You still don't understand. You're not my enemy, Richard. You're my audience. And the show isn't over." The line went dead. Emily started crying, her body shaking uncontrollably. I ran to her, holding her tight, but my mind was spinning. He was watching again. He knew where we were. Richard stood frozen for a long moment, then turned toward the window, his voice low, determined. "If he wants a show, we'll give him one. But this time, we write the ending."
"I can try," she said. "The USB has encrypted access keys. It won't connect through normal channels, but if I can bypass the security layers, I can mirror his server and broadcast from there." He hesitated. "Emily, that could trace right back to you." She looked down at the drive, her jaw tightening. "He's already traced everything. I'm done being scared." I felt a pang of pride and terror all at once. My little girl, the one who used to be shy and thoughtful, was sitting there, preparing to dismantle a monster she'd once trusted. Richard paced the room, thinking fast. "If we do this, we'll need backup. Someone who understands cybercrime. We can't go to the police, not yet. We need proof that no one can bury." Emily's eyes flicked to her laptop. "There's someone," she said. "A woman named Sasha. She used to work for Adrian before she disappeared. She leaked one of his smaller channels years ago before he erased her online footprint. But I found her once on a hidden forum. She goes by Ghostbird." "Can you reach her?" I asked. Emily nodded slowly. "If she's still out there." Richard unplugged the phone and moved toward the window, closing the blinds. "Do it. But whatever happens, we don't stay here tonight. He's watching." Emily started typing, her fingers trembling slightly over the keys. The screen filled with lines of code and encrypted logins. She moved quickly, too quickly for me to follow. The glow of the monitor reflected in her eyes, giving her face an eerie calm. Minutes passed. Then a small notification flashed on the screen. "Connection established." A chat window opened. "Ghostbird. Who is this?" "Emily. You don't know me. My name is Emily Warren. I need your help." Ghostbird. "That name is dangerous. If you're who I think, he's already watching." Emily. "He already found me. He's still running the network. I have proof." There was a pause. Then the response came faster. Ghostbird. "Proof?" Emily. "A hard drive from one of his data vaults and a video of Ava Clark. She mentioned you." For almost a full minute, there was nothing. Just the blinking cursor. Then finally, Ghostbird. "You have Ava's video." Emily. "Yes." Ghostbird. "Listen to me carefully. You have no idea what you're holding. That data isn't just blackmail. It's leverage against people in power. Judges, CEOs, politicians. That's why no one touches him." Emily. "Then help me expose it." Ghostbird. "If we do that wrong, we die before sunrise." Emily looked up at us, her face pale. "She's saying this goes higher than Adrian." Richard muttered to himself, "There's always someone higher." Another message appeared. Ghostbird. "You'll need a safe relay. I can mask your IP, reroute your stream, and drop the data in public archives before he can pull it. But you'll need to upload from somewhere off-grid." Emily. "I can do that. Just tell me where." Ghostbird. "Abandoned radio tower, Route 19 North. It still has a fiber line. Midnight. Come alone, bring the drive, don't use your phones." Richard shook his head. "This could be a trap." Emily. "I know, but it's the only lead we have." He clenched his jaw. "Then I'm going with you." "No," she said. "She said come alone." "I'm not letting you walk into that alone," he snapped. "I'm not a child anymore, and this is my mess." Their voices rose, echoing off the kitchen walls. I stepped between them. "Enough," I said softly. "We'll all go, but we'll keep our distance when we get there. If it's a trap, we'll see it coming." They both nodded reluctantly. By 11:30, we were driving north on Route 19, the hard drive sealed in a metal case, Emily's laptop powered off beside her.
The road wound through endless woods, the darkness swallowing the car headlights. No other vehicles, no signs of life. The tower appeared suddenly through the trees, tall, rusted, skeletal against the cloudy sky. At its base stood a small shack with broken windows and an old generator half buried in weeds. Emily climbed out, clutching the case. She said to come alone, stay in the car. If you see anything at all, honk twice. Richard wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just handed her the flashlight. Be careful, he said quietly. She nodded and walked toward the tower, her silhouette small against the looming structure. The gravel crunched under her shoes, the wind tugging at her hair. We watched in silence as she disappeared into the shack. The minutes dragged. 5, 10, 20. The only sound was the wind in the trees. Richard drummed his fingers against the steering wheel. It's taking too long. Give her a few more minutes, I whispered, though I was already gripping the door handle. Then, a flicker of light inside the shack, the faint glow of her laptop screen. She's in! But before we could breathe, something else caught my eye. Movement. Behind the tower, just beyond the tree line. A shadow, then another. My stomach dropped. Richard? He followed my gaze, his face tightening. 2 figures, dressed in black, moving quietly toward the shack. One of them raised an object, something metallic that caught the light. Inside, Emily's screen glow flickered wildly. We ran through the gravel crunching noise of our feet, masked by the wind, and headed for the shack. The shadows closing in. One of them raised an object, something metallic that caught the light. Inside, Emily's screen glow flickered wildly. We reached the door just as one of the men swung it open. Richard shouted, "Emily!" She turned, and in that instant, everything exploded into motion. One man lunged toward her, the other raised what looked like a stun baton. Richard tackled him to the ground, the 2 of them crashing into a pile of rusted equipment. Sparks flew. I grabbed Emily, pulling her back. "Run!" I screamed, but she shook her head violently. "No, the upload, it's almost done." The progress bar on her laptop read 87%. The man Richard was fighting broke free, slamming him against the wall. The other reached for Emily's case, but I swung the flashlight at his arm with everything I had. He grunted, dropping it. Then, over the chaos, I heard a faint sound, a voice from the laptop. Connection secure, data transfer complete. Emily's eyes widened. It worked! But before any of us could react, headlights flared outside, bright, blinding. A black SUV skidded to a stop beside the tower. Doors flew open. Adrian stepped out, calm as ever, adjusting his sleeve as if he were arriving at a business meeting. The firelight from the generator reflected in his cold eyes. He smiled faintly. You should have listened. The world seemed to stop as Adrian's voice sliced through the freezing night air. Emily froze, her laptop screen glowing faintly against the blackness, the wind tearing through her hair. The man who had haunted her every thought now stood only a few feet away, composed, predatory. His polished shoes crunched over gravel. He stepped closer. I gave you a chance, he said softly, almost disappointed. You could have stayed quiet. You could have walked away. But you had to play hero. Richard's chest heaved as he staggered to his feet, his face streaked with blood. You're done, Adrian. Whatever you built, she took it down. Adrian's cold smile widened. Took it down, he cuckolded. Do you really think I'd keep everything on one server? She uploaded scraps, useless fragments. I control a network across 3 continents. The data lives everywhere and nowhere. You haven't even scratched the surface. Emily's hands trembled, but she didn't look away. You're lying, she said. Ghostbird said the upload went through. The files went to public archives.
At that, his smile faltered just slightly, enough for me to see it. Ah, he murmured. Ghostbird. I should have guessed she'd crawl back out of her hole. He took another step forward, and I could feel the weight of his confidence, like he still believed he was untouchable.
You don't understand what you've done, Emily. Those files weren't just mine. They were leverage, a balance of power. Now everyone implicated will come for you. You've made enemies you can't even name. Emily squared her shoulders. Then let them come. I'm done living in fear. For the first time, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not anger, not panic, but irritation. She wasn't the frightened girl he once manipulated. She was steady, defiant. He sighed, shaking his head slowly. Bravery looks noble, but it's such a short-lived virtue. He motioned subtly toward one of his men. End this. Before the man could move, Richard swung the iron rod, striking him across the chest. The man collapsed with a grunt, and chaos erupted. Adrian stepped back, shouting orders, while Emily lunged for her laptop, clutching it to her chest. "Get to the car!" I screamed. She ran, and I followed, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. Behind us, Adrian's men shouted. A gunshot cracked the air. The sound echoed through the trees like thunder. We reached the car, and Richard was right behind us, blood on his hands, fury in his eyes. "Drive!" he shouted, slamming the door as I hit the accelerator. The tire spun against the gravel, kicking up dust and sparks as the SUV headlights flared behind us. They were chasing us. The dark road stretched endlessly ahead, winding between trees that blurred into shadows. Emily clutched the laptop like her life depended on it. "We just have to stay ahead," she gasped. "Ghostbird said the mirror server was encrypted. If the data spreads fast enough, he can't pull it back." Behind us, another gunshot rang out. The rear window shattered, glass raining over the seats. Richard twisted around, grabbed the steering wheel to steady me. "Keep going," he yelled. The road curved sharply. The headlights behind us faltered for a second, then veered away, lost in the darkness. For a moment, it was silent again, just the hum of the engine, the rush of wind, and the thundering of our hearts. Then Emily's laptop pinged. She looked down. A new message flashed across the screen. "Ghostbird, you did it! It's live. Every file, every video, every transaction, it's everywhere. He can't erase it now." Tears welled in Emily's eyes. "It's over," she whispered. But even as she said it, I knew it wasn't that simple. Monsters like Adrian didn't just vanish when the light found them. They fought, they clawed, they rebuilt in the dark. But maybe, just maybe, she'd taken the first real piece of him. When we finally reached the old bridge at the edge of town, the sky was beginning to lighten, the first hints of dawn bleeding across the horizon. We stopped, our breaths ragged, our faces streaked with exhaustion and disbelief. Richard got out and leaned against the railing, looking down at the water below. "You did it, kid. You just lit a fire the world can't put out." Emily smiled faintly, though tears slipped down her cheeks. "It doesn't feel like victory. It feels like survival." She turned to me. "Mom, I'm sorry for everything. For lying, for dragging you into this." I cupped her face, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "I don't apologize for surviving," I said softly. "You just make sure it meant something." She hugged me tightly, trembling in my arms. I could feel her heartbeat racing against mine, wild, terrified, alive. Behind us, the faint sound of sirens echoed in the distance, growing louder, closer. Whether they were coming for us or for him, I didn't know. But for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't dared to feel. Hope. 3 days later, the world erupted. Every major news outlet was reporting on the leak. Politicians resigned, executives vanished, court orders flew across the country. Adrian's face appeared on every screen, every paper, his empire unraveling faster than he could contain it. But he was nowhere to be found. Emily and I were moved to a safe house by a group Ghostbird coordinated through encrypted channels. Richard stayed close, though none of us really slept. Each night,
Emily stared at the glowing screen of her laptop, waiting for signs of retaliation, for Adrian's shadow to reappear. It didn't. Until one night, almost 2 weeks later, when she received an anonymous message. Unknown. You think you've won, but every system has another layer. You can expose the surface, but I built the foundation. Her hands shook. She whispered, "It's him!" I read the next line aloud. Unknown. You took my mask. I'll find another. Emily closed the laptop slowly, her face unreadable. Let him try, she said, because now he's the one being hunted. And in that moment, I realized the story wasn't about the dinner that exposed her secret life anymore. It was about the night she became something entirely different. Not a victim, not a fugitive, but the one secret Adrian Clark never saw coming. The girl who learned how to bring monsters into the light.